As Hezbollah continues attacks on Israel's northern front, the IDF is facing increasing pressure on multiple fronts, including the diplomatic front. As mentioned, the proposal from President Biden to have a 6-week pause in fighting followed by negotiations is still on the table. Here to speak with us about all of these challenges is Dr. Kobi Michael of the Miskav Institute. Kobi, thank you so much for joining us today. To start, I'd love to hear your take on Biden's proposed ceasefire deal. Is this something that Israel can or even should accept?
Good afternoon. I think that there are some flaws or some problems with this proposal, although it is referred to Israel and it was introduced as a proposal of the Israeli government. I think that it is a very creative interpretation to the Israeli government framework or proposal. I would say that there are at least three major problems. The first one is the second phase of this proposal that says that the ceasefire or the pause will continue as long as the negotiation will continue, which means that even if this phase will last more than 6 weeks, the pause will last more than 6 weeks. And as far as I know, Hamas, it will last not 6 weeks, but 6 years, because Hamas has no interest to release all the hostages, because these are the hostages, unfortunately, are the most efficient policy insurance that Hamas has, and they will demand very clear guarantees from the US that Israel will not resume the war and that Israel will not attack or will target Hamas leaders or activists, something that Israel cannot agree. The second problem is the idea of the replacement of Hamas. President Biden didn't refer to that. Who is going to replace Hamas? Because according to the proposal that was introduced by President Biden, Hamas will remain there, because if now we are entering to phase one, to a pause or ceasefire, it means that we are entering a pause where Hamas is still in power. So although we said in one sentence that Hamas will not remain in power, eventually Hamas remains in power. And how exactly any entity will be able to replace Hamas in the Gaza Strip, where Hamas is still in power. And the third problem that I can refer to is the asymmetry, the absurdic asymmetry that President Biden created between the US and Qatar. US will guarantee the commitments of Israel, and Qatar will guarantee the commitments of Hamas. First of all, US as a superpower and Qatar, okay, as a sort of a very small regional player here, and there is a symmetry between of them. Secondly, Qatar has an interest that Hamas will remain in power. Qatar is the biggest provider and supporter of Hamas, so how exactly we can rely on Qatar? We saw what Qatar did till today, and Qatar till today didn't exercise all the leverage that it has over Hamas. So I think that in order to summarize, I would say that we are talking about a very problematic proposal with a very low probability that it will be eventually realized.
Now, moving to the north, we do see a significant escalation in those attacks against Israelis by Hezbollah. What is prompting this escalation the last few days, and how do you believe that Israel should respond?
The escalation in the north is not something new. Unfortunately, Hezbollah, since October 8th, set the equation, the kinetic equation between Hezbollah and Israel, and Hezbollah just take the threshold of this equation upper and upper, almost in each day, and mainly recently. And unfortunately, Israel is only, I would say, Israel is very reactive in this regard. Israel does not initiate. And Hezbollah finds itself in a sort of a strategic comfort zone, because they have the backing of Iran that feels that there is no deterrence because the US is very reluctant with regard to any sort of attack on Iranian assets. And they understand that the US is very reluctant from the idea of expanding the regional war here. So Iran pushes and encourages Hezbollah and the other proxies to escalate the situation. Just yesterday, another ballistic missile that was launched from Yemen was launched over the sky of Eilat. And Hezbollah finds itself in a situation where its strategy is realized in a full success. Israel is dragged to an attrition war that costs a lot, not only economically. They see how the trust crisis between the Israeli society and the government increases, how the mistrust or the distrust of the Israeli society vis-a-vis the IDF is growing, and they have the chance to learn, to study the flows of our defense system and to prepare themselves better to the D-Day. So if we will not change the equation and if we will not initiate, then we will find ourselves in a very critical situation.
Dr. Kobi Michael, unfortunately we are out of time, but I do want to thank you for that critical insight as to the deal and, of course, what's happening on the Northern Front. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.